We're doing
Ooh.
it.
And we're back with carbs.
It's the Carbs
What's
Corner.
up, guys?
And we really are back. This wasn't like doing a back-to-back and we're just pretending to be back.
Huh? Yeah,
We really are back.
we are.
Why do we do that?
Come back.
We do that? We do that.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to say do. Well, now that we've lost everybody, we have Mr. Carbonell. I would say he's like, what is he, the king of Ohio?
We're competitive. Yeah, we're up there. We're up there.
If you didn't see Carb's face, that was great.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Just like Abe Froman is the sausage king of Chicago. You are the insurance king of Ohio.
I like to think that.
You are growing like a weed, my man.
Yeah, man, we're putting a lot of work into it, and it's been fun. Yeah, I know last call we've said we were going to do a lot of things, and I'm excited to talk about some of the things we've implemented and some of the things we've learned and keep grinding.
Yeah, and I think that you were hiring a bunch right around the last time we talked.
Yeah.
I love this conversation because it's the old, Marcus Lemonis from The Prophet. Do you guys like that show?
I'll look it up.
Oh, it's the best. Oh, that's my jam.
Dark Matter.
It is my favorite show. Well, what he does is he invests in different businesses and stuff. And his thing is the 3 Ps. Every business has people, a process, and product, right? Those are the 3 Ps of any business. But it's the people problem. The people problem, I think, is the biggest problem in any business. The process, once it's documented, it's there. The product in this case is already, the product's not going to change, right?
Right.
But it's the people. It's the people that we always struggle with getting more production, keeping them, entertained, keeping them on the team. So hiring, it's tough.
Yeah. People are the ultimate wild card, right? You never know what can happen, right? Sally could get run over by the bus, or Sally wins the lottery, or it's always Sally.
Yeah, Sally.
Sorry,
so
Sally.
How's the hiring going?
It's good. We've been leveraging, and that was a couple of years ago. I went away from them, but and I had some opinions on kind of how the algorithms were working with ideal traits. And I tell you what, we've had a ton of success with using that platform recently, and really throughout this entire year. And we've really dialed in, making sure that we're rating and being consistent with the right questions, grading our candidates consistently, and the process, to your point, is written down now. We were kind of doing ad lib, last year, and it kind of bit us in the butt. But now, we haven't had to let anybody go, and nobody's left in pretty much the whole year, which is great. Yeah. At the end of last year, we hired people, and within 2 weeks, we either let them go or they left. Mostly let them go because we noticed very quickly it was not a good choice. But this year, we haven't lost anybody, and we haven't had to let anybody go. We just had a hiring class of 3 people that they were hired on June 1st, 2 weeks of training, and all of them are at 25 plus items in 2 weeks.
There you go.
Wow.
And they just started selling, right?
All 3 of them?
All 3 of them, yes.
So what was that process like? How did the chance of having 3 people at once work out like that is pretty remarkable. I think anybody can say. So what's the magic sauce in that?
We started with people. It's finding the right people that fit your culture, right? So you can interview for that. Make sure you have the right culture interview questions. Make sure you have the right motivational drivers through, I mentioned, ideal traits assessments. They have a tool now, which I learned in our elite calls. And this is one thing I turned on right away, was they can do these video pre-screening interviews. So it's they apply for the role, they do the assessment, they do the video interview, and then by the time they get to our actual Zoom interview, we're 90% sure if we're going to like you or not already. So we're really weeding out a ton of candidates. So you get, 200-300 people apply, and you can quickly dwindle it down with very little efforts, where previously we'd have to screen them and waste a lot of time and set up these kind of meetings and waste time. Oh man, that was a mistake. So it's becoming much more efficient.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're looking for? You mentioned to make sure that they would fit your culture? What are some of the things specifically to your agency that you're looking for?
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is you got to be self-motivated. We ask a lot of questions about, if you're behind on your goal, everybody gets behind from time to time. Give me an example where you fell behind your goal and what did you do to not only meet it, but exceed it? I want real examples. And I've coached my managers at this point because, again, we would ask this question and you get a very basic answer. Oh, yeah, I worked really hard
Right.
Ask more questions. Give me a specific example and give me very specific actionable steps that you did to make sure that you got back from being behind. So yeah, being self-motivated is one of the biggest ones.
What's another one?
Yeah, another one would be people-oriented, right? You got to be able to have a conversation. The common theme is people, right? We're not robots. We're not talking to robots. You got to be able to hold a conversation. You got to be able to tell a story, right? And that's another one that we look at.
And how do you?
And then closing.
How do you get people to do that?
How to tell a story?
Well, no, because everybody comes in, they're talking. Like, how do you decide whether or not that they're able to carry on a good conversation? Because I feel like people come in for interviews and they're just so full of it. Like they have their spiel that they're saying. It's hard to decipher whether or not that's like actually how they talk or if it's,
Yeah.
practice.
One of the questions that we ask now is, tell me a time where you changed a customer's perspective on something. So they'd have to give you a specific example of maybe somebody calling in and, whatever the question was, and they didn't agree with it. Well, how did you change their perspective? So they're going to have to use examples and why these things are changing in our industry. And they got to be able to portray that. So most of the people we're interviewing are already licensed, which helps with a lot of that ramp up period. A lot of agencies are going through a lot of churn, right? A lot of companies are tightening their underwriting, so they got to let people go, or they're dialing back down on their marketing and investment, which, people want to be with agencies that are selling and operating still, right? We're commission-based, performance-based teams. So
I love it. And then number 3,
out there.
Closing. How do you find a good closer, my man?
Yeah, I mean, the closing is a big piece of the assessment, right? So one of the traits is being a closer or a salesperson. And then it gives you like different scores and then on persuasiveness and again, just closing skills in general. But we're looking for somebody that can be confident with asking for the close, right? Most salespeople go through the presentation and never ask for the sale. I don't understand. You put in all that effort, you built this relationship, and you leave it up to them to decide the next steps. It's important for us to take control of the conversations. So those are some of the traits that we're looking at for people for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest ones. How do you get somebody to overcome that?
Overcome like an objection, or overcome the fear of asking for the sale.
The fear of asking for the sale.
Don't be scared to ask. It's just a question, right? I mean, again, we've just spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour with this person on the phone. You deserve that. You deserve to ask for that sale, right? So empower your individuals and give them that confidence that you deserve to ask for that sale. And if it's not you, then who else, right? Someone else is going to ask for it. Why aren't you asking for it when you just put in all this work? You're putting them in a better spot if you're following our processes. And even if we're $20, $30, $40, $50 more a month, right? Is the value that you provided in your advice worth another $20 a month? $30 a month, right? That's $1 a day. So you got to be confident in your conversations, and that's just through training and development.
But how do you get Sally to do that? Because Sally's not doing it. You're frustrated as the business owner. How do you approach that conversation? So
this is someone that is already quoting, right? And we're just seeing through our standards of performance, let's assume that she's meeting her quote goals and her talk time is up there, but her sales aren't reflecting that. Right?
Yeah.
If we're looking at the numbers
I think
don't lie.
because I think that's a problem that a lot of people have in their agencies is you have this person, you can tell they're trying, right? So then it's like, I can't fire them. Should I fire them or not fire them? You notice that they're doing the work. Like that's the next step, right? You have the person that's not doing the work. Pretty easy to fire that person. They're putting in 5 minutes of talk time. It's like, dude, you're out, right? But then you have that person that you do like. The team likes them. You like them. they're doing the work, they're doing the steps, they're a hustler, but they're just not closing anything. And it's like, oh, should I fire them or what should I do? Or how do I approach it? Because you're telling her, dude, you got to close. And she's not closing. So it's like, how do you actually convert that person to closing?
Yeah, that's that skill versus will, right? If someone has the skills but doesn't have the will, then they're just not trying. We're going to let them go, like you said. Somebody has the will. You can see they're putting in the effort, the activity. Like, I'm excited to work with you and help you get better. But yeah, that's just a development thing. I think some of the things we do is listen to calls consistently and meet with these individuals and make sure that we're not only training in a group setting, but also in a one-on-one setting, and provide that feedback, right? Are you trusting the process and having the full conversation? Don't pick and choose the parts that you want to follow, right? Because you're going to see that, right? Again, we're human. We have our framework, the conversation we want to be having, but then sometimes we get too comfortable or we feel uncomfortable with asking these questions, so they pick and choose what part of the sales questions they want to ask. So make sure they're following the whole process, because that lets you know if they deserve to ask for the sale. Because if you didn't follow the process, then you're right. You didn't deserve to ask for the sale. Follow the process, and then we can fix the problem saying, hey, ask for the sale, right? You follow the process. You know you're doing a good job. You know you're helping this prospect, this client. Be confident and ask for the sale. And who do you bank with? It's a very easy question to ask at this point in the process.
100%.
That's the fun part.
It is the fun part. And that's the big shift for them mentally when they go from that place where they're afraid to ask, and then they actually realize, oh, I need to ask, and I need to accept that I'm going to get no's, 80% of the time. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that, think back to when you first started in sales and you're learning, and it was like each call you wanted it to close, and you didn't consider, well, at least from my perspective, I wasn't really considering the numbers. I was considering each deal and like, man, I didn't, and thinking about how I didn't get that one, which would put you in this place of not wanting to ask. Right. And so I wonder if there's some of that, but what happens is you've insulated and protected yourself from that, right? Because you've done it both ways, where you've been reactive, you've hired only when you needed to. And you've learned, as all of us have, that it's highly ineffective and terrible, right? Because you end up hiring the duds, and then you just have this cycle. You become proactive, and you're always hiring with this framework that you follow. Well, now you're getting the right people more consistently because you're doing the right things following that framework, which then has the right people going through your onboarding funnel, right? And you're on them. Like, it isn't, let them run for a month and then I'll come back and check if they're freaking asking, right? It's like, no. Like, if they're not asking for the business, in the first week. And if they won't, then they're gone, right? I mean, I've been in both of those situations too. And telling the person, a month after they've started that they need to ask for the business is much different than telling the person on the third day, when they're still shaking and afraid to pick, when they're still working out the kinks, because now they're more likely to be able to develop that skill. On the other side, I think that the habit of being afraid is just too entrenched.
How many sales reps do you have now? No, how many? Because you guys have been really picking it up this year. How many sales reps are you at? Five?
Yeah, and I want to keep it at 5. Like, it's like once you get into 6, it's 7, and then okay. Now you need a lot of people you need a lot more leads, which is fine because it all works out, but it becomes more to manage, Yeah. I find 5 is okay. I trust my ops guy is going to handle it, and but you start getting into the 50K payroll, things change.
Absolutely. And it's just running your own race, right? Like, what are your goals as a business owner? And 5 items gets you to, or not 5 sales reps gets you where you want to be. Like, that's where you're shooting for. So can't be too stressed about what other people are doing. But like,
I know we get to 200 to 250 with 5 salespeople. So, we're right there. We're on pace for 170. That's fine. All day long it cash flows and it's great and we're growing. So
heck yeah, that's what it's about. If you're not growing, you're dying.
You just hired a couple, right?
What?
A couple of them are new though, right?
Newer. The 2 guys. I have 2 guys now, and they both same thing, because like, George, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. We're always talking and doing these same similar setup. I mean, we have the constant candidates coming in, and then it's to the onboarding. And I mean, they know they're on the phones and they're making calls, and they are asking for the business immediately, right? As soon as they quote, then they're going to be asking for it. And like, I know that they're listening to the calls. Like if they didn't ask, the rest of the producers are going to be all over them because people were all over them about not asking. So it's part of the culture now. Everybody knows you ask at least 3 times. Not did you ask? It's like, did you ask 3 times?